Okay, Mayor, you can start.
Welcome to the regular Board of Trustee meeting for Tuesday, September 22nd, 2020. Is there a motion to open the meeting? Trustee Nell, second. Trustee Taylor, all in favor? Meeting is now open. Can we do the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge of allegiance to the flag
of the United
States
States
of America,
and to the republic for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Just very quickly, the instructions on how to watch the meeting and the directions for the remote participation in public meetings and hearings. The directions are on our website and they are attached to the agenda, but I will again quickly advise people. The instructions on how to view the meeting have been posted on the village website. The meeting is being streamed live on the village's YouTube website and via Zoom by either video or phone. The instructions for attending the public hearing or the courtesy of the floor. If you are participating via Zoom, either by phone or video, you can raise your hand and we will call on residents in the order in which they do so. In order to raise your hand, you should click on the icon labeled participants and a column appears on the right-hand side. At the bottom of that window is the raise your hand button. For people calling in by phone, you can push *9 in order to raise your hand. We will let you know it is your turn by calling either your name or your phone number. So the start of tonight's meeting, we have a public hearing. And that public hearing, the first public hearing is to amend statute number 290-29, alternate side of the street parking, streets and days designated on Hatch Terrace. I do have, the board has a memorandum from Chief Guevara dated August 20, 2020, which lays out the problem. I know the chief is present. I don't know if the chief, if you can just briefly explain what the situation is.
In regards to Hatch Terrace, what we've been enforcing with the signage was just trying to put it in line with what was apparently the code was wrong. So we've been enforcing the signs that are present. It's not changing alternate side. The enforcement will remain the same. We're just bringing the signage and the way it was written in the code into alignment. So that was the purpose of this amendment.
Okay, I think I have to take a motion to open the public hearing. So is there a motion to open the public hearing? Trustee Taylor, second. Trustee Patino, all in favor? The public hearing is open. Rick, can you say the same thing again? I'm just joking, it's fine. We got your take on it. Is there anybody from the board who has any questions about it? Okay, is there anybody from the public who is here to speak about it?
There is somebody with their hands up. I'm going to allow them to speak. Can you hear us? I think the name is Sezgin. Can you hear us, Sezgin? Maybe it was an accident.
Hello. Actually, it was an accident. Sorry about that.
Okay. Okay, sorry. Thank you.
Okay, so there's no one here in the public who wants to speak about it, and the board doesn't seem to have any other comments. So this is, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Laura Lee or Ed, this is just a matter of having the code reflect what the signs say, correct?
Yep, this is to a local law to amend the code so it reflects that what's been happening on the ground in terms of the sign enforcement. So yes, it is just to formalize that which has already been happening.
Okay, so is there a motion to close the public hearing? Trustee Nell, second. Trustee Patino, all in favor? Okay, the public hearing is now closed, and I have before me the local law. I think I have it.
It's in the, yeah, it's in the,
Okay, so is there a motion to enact this change in the law, which I will read?
adopt, yeah, you're gonna adopt the law.
I need a motion. Trustee Taylor, second trustee Cassell. So the motion reads as the local law will be it enacted, the Board of Trustees of the Village of Dobbs Ferry hereby amends section 290-29, alternate side of the street parking, streets and days designated Hatch Terrace as follows. And it will then have the name of the street, Hatch Terrace, and the days, Thursday and Friday, location, the entire length. All in favor? Okay, that passes unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Rick.
No problem. Have a good night.
You too.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on next to agenda item number 2 for public hearing. If everyone will recall, we were supposed to receive some information prior to tonight's meeting. Actually, we had a deadline of when that should have been submitted. That information was not received timely. Since the information was not received timely, we will not entertain the public hearing or even open the public hearing. Do I have to open it to adjourn it?
You can just adjourn it. You can take a motion to adjourn to a date certain.
Okay, and the next meeting is when?
The
October
13th
13th.
Okay,
at
So-
6:30.
can I have a motion to adjourn the public hearing regarding 100 Main Street to October 13th at 6:30? Trustee Sullivan, second trustee Taylor, all in favor? Okay, that passes unanimously, so that public hearing has been adjourned. Moving on to presentations. Tonight, we're going to create an ad hoc Human Rights Diversity Committee based upon the events that have happened in this village over the last few months. The board, I've discussed this with the board, and the board, we're all in agreement that we have to take further action to make everyone feel welcome in this village. We don't want anyone to feel that there's any kind of inequality or prejudice. So we've spoken about it, and we think the next first step would be to create this ad hoc committee. So what I'd like to do, since it is an ad hoc committee, it's not a statutory committee and it's not subject to the nominating committee. So at the outset, I would just like to talk to people at the rest of the trustees to see how they feel about the size of the committee and briefly what they think the scope and the responsibilities should be. I also have invited Stu Heckel, who is on the Town of Greenberg's Human Rights Committee, to speak today. He's a resident. Jen, is he present?
He is. Do you want me to put him on as a panelist now?
Yeah.
Okay, hold on one second. Stu, can you hear us?
Yes, thank you.
So welcome, Stu. I appreciate you taking the time out to speak to us today. So can you give us a brief overview of what the town's committee does and what their scope is and what their role is?
Sure. The town committee is an advisory committee to the town government. It doesn't have any investigative power, any prosecutorial power. Essentially, it looks into situations that occur in the town. It was created by Paul Feiner and by the other members of the village government. Judith Beville, the town clerk, was very instrumental in it. And there was a feeling that the town really didn't have a handle on some of the issues that were affecting members of the community. And they didn't have the expertise among the members of the town board to be able to address it. So this committee was created. And we meet, well, lately during COVID, we've been meeting twice a month. Prior to that, it was monthly. And we've been active in all manner of human rights issues. Probably the one that would be most affecting Dobbs Ferry had to do with the proliferation of neo-Nazi literature that was disseminated throughout the river towns, and especially in Greenburgh, although it really was throughout the county, but really concentrated in Dobbs Ferry, in Hastings, in Tarrytown, in Ardsley. There were swastika graffiti, things of that nature. And we brought that to the county on behalf of Greenburgh and asked the county to take a good look at it. We asked them to form a task force, which is still something that hasn't been discussed, but the County Human Rights Commission has created a position, or at least funded a position for someone on the County Human Rights Commission to look into that. So we felt we did a pretty decent job of that. It was certainly an episode or a number of episodes. It's still happening, and I chronicle every one of those in the county that I can find. And, you know, it happens a few times a month still, where there's incidents of organized or disorganized racism that takes place. And, you know, it really needs to be addressed at some formal level by the county. And so we thought that we'd, on behalf of the town, that, you know, we bringing that to the county was probably one of the things we did that we were effective on. Lately, we've been very involved in the reimagining police efforts that every municipality has to undergo, and our members are extremely active on the town's committee for that. So that's just a couple of things that we do. And you know, being a Dobbs resident for the last 32 years, I mentioned to the mayor in June after the first rally down at Waterfront Park, I thought that we heard some things at that rally that were rather eye-opening and ear-opening about the way the Black community felt it was being treated. And I thought it'd be a good idea to bring this subject up to the mayor, that perhaps it's creating a committee not unlike the one we have for the town, but just focusing on matters of interest in Dobbs Ferry would be something worth considering. And that was renewed most recently with the T-shirt incident. So the mayor and I exchanged some emails, had some discussion. He asked me to give this some thought, draw up some ideas about what we might like a committee to look like, which I've done. And you know, I believe that, you know, we have a growing diversity in this village. We also have people who've been here for quite a long time. There's changes going on in the village on a regular basis. And people don't always take change very well or very easily. A committee like this can help anticipate some of those changes, can help address some of the friction that might result from that, can look for ways to address it, can look for ways to help alleviate it. If things persist, if laws are broken, there are remedies that are prescribed under the law, not that we couldn't address, but that we could refer to the county, who does have the authority to address it. And I think it's a resource that the town really, the village really should consider. And not considering it, I think we probably run the risk in our community of experiencing more of what we just have gone through. You know, I've seen a number of meetings that this board has had over the last 30 something years I've lived here. I think we know that most of the business that the village undertakes is commercial. You know, it has to do with real estate, has to do with the businesses, the storefronts, traffic, things of that nature. And sometimes those things get a lot of outcry, and things that really deal with the people in the community sometimes get overlooked as a consequence. And it would perhaps be in all of our interest to to focus on that a little more strongly. I think the statement that this body came out with the last week or so was outstanding. I really want to compliment you on the crafting of it, on the wording of it, on the intent behind it. And I think the thing now is to get behind that statement and to live up to it and to put into motion steps that would make that a reality. And there's right ways to do human rights work. There's wrong ways to do human rights work. I can only point to one particular example in the village that I'm aware of, and it had to do in the school district. The PTSA formed a diversity committee a few years ago, and I joined it along with a number of other people. And there was a divide on the committee, actually. And the divide was that there were people who really wanted to look at curriculum and ask some hard questions about the way teachers and students interact. And then there was a group of people on the committee that felt the best way to address diversity was to have a little festival with costumes and food. And unfortunately, the costumes and food people won out. And there's a group called Black in Dobbs Ferry that posts on Instagram regularly. The vast majority of the comments come out of the school district, students and former students. And you can tell that if there's a diversity committee, they're not addressing any of the issues that the people who post on that Instagram account are discussing. So tough questions need to be asked. Some difficult conversations need to be had. And I think this committee would probably begin, it's just the beginning, obviously, but begin that discussion that Dobbs Ferry really needs. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
You're muted, Vinny.
Thank you, Stu. Could you tell me how large a committee is the town of Greenberg? How many members are there?
Well, we have about 10 or 11 permanent members that are appointed by the town board, but we also have people who are not official members, but act as members. For one reason or another, they didn't want to join. They didn't want to go through the process. It's not really that hard a process, but they just didn't want to do it. They do the work that we do. We're very active in immigrant rights matters for a while. We've been active in food insecurity issues for a while in some of the areas of the town of Greenberg that have needs in those areas. And so not everybody who is on our committee is really a member, but not official member, but we treat them as members. But I think in this case, you would probably want, a group of people who were committed to it. And the problem with not having regular members is they just come and go. I think that for a village as small as Dobbs Ferry, you probably want, a group of people that would be happy to be committed.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking around 10 people myself. So I'd like to open this up to the other trustees and see what their thoughts are.
I had a question for Stu, if you don't mind. You said that the Greenberg board doesn't do investigation, doesn't have investigatory powers, but when incidents happen, they do something. What do they do then?
Well, if it's a violation of the law, we really don't do anything. We would refer it to the County Human Rights Commission. They have the Title VII EEOC laws that have been in effect for a number of decades. The County Human Rights Commission is the Title VII authority for Westchester. The history of human rights work in the county is I don't want to go into it in great length because it's really long and complicated and somewhat boring. But at the beginning of Title VII, a lot of municipalities set up their own human rights committees and commissions, and they all assume that investigative and prosecutorial authority. And it turned out the county had one too, and the state had one. The county one was really backlogged, and to alleviate the backlog, they folded all the municipal ones and put a lot of authority into the county one and staffed up and put a lot of money and resources into the county commission a number of years ago. And so some of the municipal ones, the villages and the towns that had them kind of dried up and disappeared. Some of them are still active, Yonkers is still active. Rye has one. Peekskill has one. There's a few others. Greenberg is different. Greenberg actually was created after all that activity took place. So it's kind of a different model and a new model, and actually more of a model that I think would work for Dobbs because it's not prosecutorial, but it looks at things, and really as I see this thing working, it really would be advising you guys, on what needs to be done. If we found out that there was a situation in the village that needed addressing, we could investigate it, and we could come to you and say, look, here's the situation. Here's what we think the problem is rooted in. Here are some steps that we think might be able to solve the problem. And it'd be yours to handle at that point. So it's more advice than anything else, but informed advice.
Anybody else?
Yeah, because I was thinking about this, and I think certainly one of the missions of this group should be to ID issues that are going on in town, in our community. And in doing so, we would need to create a safe space for people to come forward to talk to people. Because we've had incidents where people don't want to go to the police, or they don't want to go to authorities for fear of retaliation or whatever. So this group should also be a place that people could contact and express issues that are going on without it having to be formal. And because of that, I also think that members of this community, of this group, should be obviously members of the community, but we should also make sure that there are maybe conflict resolution specialists on this committee, therapists, social workers, members of the faith community, who could also be resources that people will go to, who know how to handle it, and who have some professional credit in this area as well.
Donna, that's a good point, and I can't disagree with it. I would say, however, that it's probably more important for the committee to reflect the diversity of the town.
Oh, that too, absolutely.
More than
absolutely.
anything. We could always tap into those other people with professional resources without them being full members of the committee. But I think that, if you had an incident that, let's say, the Asian community was concerned about, if there's a member on the community who's Asian, that person is more able to identify and address the problem that you brought up, that, people don't want to come forward. That's really part of the biggest problem that I think we've really learned over the last few weeks and even few months, is people don't feel comfortable. When problems arise, they don't feel they can go to the police. They don't feel they could go anywhere. So, and it really would be, there'll be a period of establishing credibility even for this committee. Why should they come to this committee? Who the hell are you? And what have you ever done? So I think that, that's going to be a little bit of a struggle just in itself. And, frankly, I have to tell you, we have that problem in Greenberg too. So we've had it, at certain points. They feel they're going to the town government, and maybe the town government is the problem that they want to complain about. So they don't know that, they don't know if going to the town human rights committee is really the right step for them, but then they have nowhere to go. So a lot of it is establishing credibility. But I don't want to disagree with you and say that, we shouldn't have those conflict resolution people. Absolutely. I mean, I have a little bit of training in that, but not much. I've had a lot of training in human rights work myself, starting, back in the 50 years ago as a student activist, and, and up into my years as in graduate school at the University of Missouri. I spent 3 years organizing against the Ku Klux Klan in Missouri. And from that, I was asked to join the city's Human Rights Commission as a commissioner. And from that, I was given a job at the State Human Rights Commission in Kansas City. That's all a long time ago. But, and when I saw in the not too many years ago that there was a rise in racism and it was coming from somebody who was running for president, I felt that it was probably time to get back into that fight again. And that's how I got involved in the town's Human Rights Committee. It's important, I think we don't need to look around very far to find out how important it is just in this village.
All right, so thank you. Is there anybody else who have any other questions? Yes, Maura.
I feel that one of the missions also of the committee should be about educating the community about the differences in our community and use those differences to unite the community. Educating people about the different cultures and traditions that compose our community will be extremely important to build unity. I don't want to focus only on all of the challenges and all of the things that they separate the community, but in the things that we can do to unite the community and educate and unite the community through education about all the differences that make us still a community.
I would agree with you, Maura. And in the little statement that I worked up that I sent to the mayor, and I don't know if any of you have seen that yet, that's certainly part of how I envision that the committee working. But I want to hearken to an incident that I came across in looking at how different communities handle a rise in racism. And I stumbled about a year ago on a situation out in the West Coast in Oregon, a town called Oswego Lake, which is a suburb of Portland. Oswego Lake has done some amazing things. You all remember when Starbucks closed down for a day to give diversity training and anti-bias training and training on racism to their entire chain of stores and everybody who worked there. Well, Oswego Lake took that same day and closed down their entire city government, their school system, their police and fire departments. Anybody who was at all connected with the government and the town in any way, shape, or form, the public works department, the recreation department, and everybody took anti-bias training on that day. And there's been an ongoing effort to do that in Oswego Lake ever since. It wasn't just a one-time thing. And to me, that's a good step that would amplify the statement that this board came up with not long ago. That you're really putting your time and your effort and your energies where your statement was, and you're doing that yourself. You're encouraging everybody who works in the village and works for the village to do that. The school district would do it. And I talked to members of the Oswego Lake community that initiated that, to the police chief. I talked to the head of the Board of Education, the superintendent. I talked to a leading activist, and they told me some really interesting stories about how that came about. They all went to a Holocaust museum in Los Angeles together, and that was the start of their desire to work on this stuff. And we could do that in Dobbs Ferry. I mean, everybody in the village who's got a position for the village, there's no reason you couldn't go to the one of the Holocaust museums, or to the African American Museum in Washington D.C. Those are phenomenal institutions. I went to the Civil Rights Museum in Memphis a year ago, and it's just an amazing experience to do something like that, and changes your perspective on the world in which we live. So that's just some food for thought, and something I saw another municipality do with some success. And education is all part of that, and that's what Maura was talking about.
So I did receive Stu's mission statement, the layout at 5:56 today. So I'm sorry, I'm looking at it for the first time, and I will forward it to everyone. But I do think it's a good, starting point. And this is just a first step. It's just the creation of the committee, and then we can fine tune the mission statement and move forward. But I think you raised some very interesting ideas and good points. So thank you, Stu.
One
Thank you,
thing
Mayor.
that I hope with this committee, this can be a entry point to get more people involved in all of the parts of the village, like all of the boards and committees that we have. Because once we have a place where more people feel welcome to join and have these discussions, they can learn more about how the rest of the boards and committees work and possibly get more in all of the, you know, beyond the Board of Trustees, but the AHRB, the planning board, like getting people more involved and engaged with everything would be a great outcome of getting people on this committee first to start to have these discussions as to how to make people feel more welcome in every aspect of the village, especially in its governance and how it runs.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, good point. So I'm urging everyone, all the residents or any resident that's interested, who feels they have either a background that's sufficient, or they have an interest in getting involved, to contact me directly, or any of the trustees, or the village administrator. Send me, especially, I would like to see a resume or just a brief description of what your background is. And I think certainly by the next Board of Trustee meeting, I will be able to announce the committee members themselves, and then we can decide when to meet and how often to meet. I think once a month probably is a good idea, and we can decide what the procedures will be after that. Okay, so any other comments by anybody?
One thing quickly, and that is, I think somebody said it very early on, but I think it's important that the committee be diverse, that it include the schools, that CV also be included if it's possible and they want to participate. I think that we really, if we can connect across all of those different functions or facets, it'll help make sure that the committee is a good representation.
Right. So I have reached out to Children's Village, and Jeremy is certainly interested. And there was one or two other people who I've met at the rally the last rally who I've spoken to about joining, because I think they expressed their feelings and their experiences very well. And I've asked them also to participate. So yes, I do believe that the committee must be very diverse and must reflect everyone from all walks of life and all backgrounds.
And ages.
Yes.
It should be intergenerational as well. Yeah.
Yes, you're right.
Mayor, we do have somebody from the public with their hand raised, and somebody left a comment in the Q&A. Do you want me to tell them to wait until courtesy of the floor, or do you want to address them now?
Let's address it now.
Okay, hold on. June, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, hi. I'm going to just read part of my statement that I emailed yesterday to Liz Draper. Thank you very much for accepting my comment. And I'm going to cut to the just to follow through up with what Stu has described, and also what the trustees have talked about already, and go on from that point. So I urge us all to be as thoughtful and as informed as possible about the approach we decide to take together. Not just the end result, but the process is important too. For meaningful reform to take place, for all of us in Dobbs Ferry to renew our hope for this town to be better and to do better, this is no time to be sloppy or overly confident or in it for the wrong reasons. And here's what I mean and what I'm calling for. So what I mean is less of the one-off checkbox type actions and more of the sustained long-range systemic change to make Dobbs Ferry the best it can be. Less of the stepping over the perspectives and lived experiences of BIPOC, more of the stepping back to amplify and understand perspectives and experiences that have been historically and currently still erased from our collective consciousness. Less of that glory-seeking, publicity-seeking actions, more of those meaningful actions that don't steal the spotlight away from the people who are hurting and in need, and less of an imbalanced, artificially unified voice, but more space for a healthy mix that enriches Dobbs, and less accountability to any particular governmental entity per se, but more accountability to the people in this community whom we live, work, study, and play alongside. Less defensiveness based on a very narrow sense of nostalgia, more openness to questioning what we mean by, quote, how Dobbs Ferry once was, end quote. Does it refer to what Dobbs Ferry once was 40 to 50 years ago or 100 years ago? Or are we referring to how this place was originally for the Lenape people before Europeans and subsequent people took over? Worth getting that cleared up. I think we make the road by walking. We have in our midst 2 visual reminders of this etched into the land we walk on, all the footprints that eventually created what we now call Broadway, the Aqueduct Trail, where we have fresh footprints that we leave behind, overlapping the footsteps that precede ours. Both remind us of the journey made and the journey ahead. Forming this committee is only one step. We can't know the entirety of the land ahead of us, but no one is born knowing how to do that. No one knows how to do it right from the get-go. But that's okay, because here in Dobbs, there are people among us who have taken this journey. Some of them are way ahead of us. Some are a little bit ahead. Some fell behind, got lost, or retracing their steps. Some are looking for an easy on-ramp. Some are tired, very, very tired. But we pause, we breathe, and we keep going. What's important for us to recognize is that there are people within the community who are experienced, trained, and successful in this work. They're ahead of us, but they're right here for us. Look for them, listen to them, learn from them, please. Neighbors, mayor, board of trustees, I beg you to channel all the love and frustration and anger and heartache and genuine care for this village, to take this road and stay the course. Stay the course. We make the road by walking together. Let's build a pathway to a better Dobbs for all of us and generations to follow. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And I did receive your letter. It was, I took it to heart, and I thank you for appearing and saying that. So thank you. So obviously we have a lot to address, a lot to, just to take in. And, we have a lot of work to do, obviously. So this is the first step in that long road. So I think, Jen, you said there's someone who had a question.
Yes. Kevin, if you want to speak, do you want to raise your hand? Oh, actually, I don't see him on anymore.
I think I don't know what the question was, and I'll read it here. It says, would it be safe to say that the formation of this committee will only be in place to advise the Greenberg Human Rights Committee? And if so, what other purpose would it serve? I think we should be looking more closely at the recent T-shirt incident, for example, given that it has happened in our town. So just to be clear, this committee will not be in place to advise the Greenberg Human Rights Committee. Its purpose will be to deal exclusively with Dobbs Ferry issues. We will not, I don't see us having much interaction necessarily with Greenberg Human Rights Committee. Certainly there may be overlapping issues, but for the most part, for the vast majority, the Dobbs Ferry Human Rights Committee will be focusing on Dobbs Ferry issues, and Dobbs Ferry Committee will be addressing those issues. We will not be putting it off to the town of Greenberg's to address it for us. Now, certainly, as Stu indicated, if there was some criminal issues and would be referred to the police department or perhaps to the county's Human Rights Committee, but certainly we would be addressing our own issues. So that's the way I see it.
Mr. Mayor, can I add something?
Sure.
Just, a quick reminder that this committee was thought of by you way back, a few months back. It has nothing really to do with the incident with the T-shirt. This is something that you've been speaking of for a while. And it is just that now more than ever, you recognize that it is needed, and that's why you're taking action on it. But this is not only related to the T-shirt incident. This is something that has history already within this board.
Yeah, well, I think also, all the trustees have spoken, certainly after the rally, I think it was in June, I think we all spoke about, we were all taken by what the emotions and people's feelings were. And I think, it wasn't certainly just me. I think all of you guys felt, the emotion and the pain that people were suffering. So I think with the recent events just hasten this along. But you're right, have been thinking about this for a while. Okay. Stu, I know you have another meeting to go to or other things to do, so thank you for stopping by.
Thank you very much.
We will be reaching out to you. I have forwarded your ideas to the rest of the board already, so let's move forward with it. So thanks again.
Thank you. And any of you who wish to converse with me about this, I guess my email is probably on that. So I'll be happy to have further discussions with any of you. And again, your statement, last one, was terrific. And I hope it's the beginning of things that we all need to do here in this village to get us moving in the right direction. So thanks again.
Thank you, Stu. And again, I have reached out to certain residents already to gauge their interest. And if any other residents have an interest in participating, whether it be as a full-time member or maybe as, like a part-time type member, they have something to contribute or some ideas, we're happy to entertain it. So please feel free to contact me in the near future. Having said that, let's move on to presentation number 2, agenda item number 2. And that's a presentation by BFJ Planning for a proposal to serve as the village's consultant for site plan reviews. So Ed, do you want to talk about this?
And I just promoted Frank Fish to a panelist.
So we wanted to go out to get somebody who had a more complete package of planners and engineers and traffic consultants to look at the hard cases in Dobbs, some that need special attention to make sure that the village is well represented when dealing with developers, to just be sure that the village is protected. And BFJ is certainly fits that bill and is here to make a presentation to you tonight.
So thank you. Welcome, Mr. Fish. We'd appreciate if you could, just highlight of what your services are and what you can bring to the village.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Good. Okay. Well, BFJ Planning is a firm of about 18 people. We have several groups in the firm. The way we're organized, we're basically a planning firm. We do a lot of comprehensive plans and zoning. We do a lot of reviews for villages, towns throughout Westchester. We have a transportation group. We have an economic or market group. And we have an environmental group. So we have, I think, we're actually organized in a way. We were founded in 1980. We're organized to be able to review developments and, quite frankly, also represent applicants in the review process. So we found those groups in the firm: transportation, environment, market, studies, planning and zoning, and urban design are things that we can bring to the table. We had put in our proposal to you, which I hope all of the trustees, all of you have, some other communities that we work in, just to give you an idea of where we're working. But there's a number of villages from Briarcliff Manor and Mount Kisco through Mamaroneck and Tarrytown and Tuckahoe. So we have provided planning services to them. We assist the planning boards, zoning board of appeals, and of course on zoning matters, that type of issue, boards of trustees. So we have reviewed, fairly complicated projects from the Springfield Suites Marriott Hotel and in the little village of Tuckahoe, which was somewhat controversial and complicated because it was a brownfield site. I don't know if you're all familiar with it, but through other projects, tonight we have a solar farm in Mount Kisco proposal with a cell tower type of thing. So I think we can bring to this undertaking that type of experience. And what we've proposed to you basically, and I think I sent to Ed proposal to do this as we would normally do it for another community, any other community, and that is on a time and expense basis against an escrow fee, which the applicant would put up. And as you know, Mayor, just attended at Ed's request, a first meeting. So I'm a little bit familiar now with the children, I call it the children, it's not the Children's Village application, but it's an application by a private developer, Glenn Vetramile and Partners. But basically multifamily housing and an assisted care facility. So I think some of you are familiar with my partner, George Akamar, who heads up our transportation group. I have another partner, Sarah Yakel, who does a lot of environmental and seeker review work. So the three of us would be involved, and we also put in two senior planners, one who's heavily involved in environmental review and the other who's transportation. So I think we have the depth to assist you, the trustees and the planning board in this matter. So with that, I just ask if there's questions that you might have.
Well, I see in part of the documents that you submitted to us that you've done a lot of work with a lot of different villages, but what struck me, one of the things was the village of Tarrytown.
Yes.
Can you just talk a little bit about your involvement with Tarrytown? It looks like you did, they really changed their waterfront, and that must have been a big project. So
It was, and that's one that Drew Fixell had just become mayor then, so it goes back a little bit. There was a very large environmental impact statement, which the village felt they were a little bit bogged down in, and they brought us in to try to move that along, that EIS. And I think I'm very pleased with it. I think Drew was pleased with it and how it came out. We helped we assisted the trustees and in that EIS, in the details of it. That one happened to involve visual assessment quite a bit. There was I think a very detailed issue of how high, the heights of those buildings, how they would be seen from sort of Tarrytown inland of the railroad tracks, which is up a hill, and how tall those buildings would be, what would be the views of the Hudson River, how many units, what was impacts on transportation and on the road system, particularly the H Bridge, going over the train station. So we looked at all of those issues and came out with what I think most people are fairly pleased in Tarrytown with the outcome of that. I think also we got into actually design on that, and at our suggestion, they made some very major changes in design. If I recall, that was partly Joe Cotter as developer there. And I think they responded. The applicant responded to the concerns of the trustees. So it took about, it was lengthier than perhaps I hope your Children's Village review will be. That took, it took about 3 years. And by the way, I think it was worth it and came out very well. So that was one of them in Tarrytown. There are several others. There were reviews of residential developments in Tarrytown that we've done. We worked also with them in Greenberg on Taxter Road areas. So we've done a lot of work there and did a sort of historic quadrant zoning for them. We did an old master plan for them. So, I think it's worked out well. There's continuity there now with a man named Robert Galvin, who they have hired as they got very busy and they brought on board. I think Bob is there 2 days a week. Bob, I know very well. He was our client for about 18 years as chairman of the planning board in the village of Mamaroneck, where we did a lot of reviews for them. So yeah, that was an experience in Tarrytown.
Well, it's just that I think with these big projects, I think it's good, it's essential actually to have a team behind us that could advise us from the beginning what we could expect, what we can't expect, what's reasonable, what's unreasonable, what we could push for, what not push for, that we don't get pushed over. So I think in the past we have missed that. And I'm very excited to have, you join us to provide the expertise that I think we've been lacking, and that we don't want to get this project, if, who knows what will happen, I have no idea, but we at least want to feel comfortable that we have someone who can advise us, that has the experience of doing this in the past. Yes, Donna?
Yeah, I just want to make sure, and I'm sure that this is part of the deal too, is that you will also be available to advise on the board. So if a project comes before our planning board for that evening, you'd be able to, or representative for your company would be able to sit in on that portion of the meetings.
Yes, absolutely. We do. For instance, if you talk to Tuckahoe, we're before all three boards there quite a bit. Both ZBA, Planning Board, those are the two boards actually we're before most in some of the other communities, but we are also before the trustees there. And of course, this one has just about everything, as you had discussed with me. You've got a zoning app. Well, I have not seen the application yet. I've only seen I have the PowerPoint that the developer showed you all, but it's a zoning change application, so it's right away with the trustees, but it's also a subdivision in a site plan, so it's with the planning board. So yes, is the answer, Donna. We would be able to attend whatever board meeting is appropriate, both trustees and planning board, and if there were some variances, and there may be, the zoning board of appeals.
Any other questions?
Well, I just want to share with Frank that I'm actually sitting right at the side of the Tuckahoe, because this is the Spring Hill Suites by Marriott Tuckahoe that you described.
Are you? Okay. Well, now
I'm sitting in my office.
All right, fine. Yeah, that was a very long, controversial one. And I think the outcome, if you actually, I was so pleased that this is very rare, two opponents of the development, when it was all over and built, not yet occupied, but built, they came before the trustees and said, you know, they almost said, you know, we're sorry for the opposition that we had. We didn't think it would come out this way. We didn't know that they didn't have faith that the village could pull that off. And the village, by the way, on that one, we went to DEC and the Department of Health and made sure that was a brownfield site, as you know, you may know. And it's very rare for the state to come. They actually came to a couple of meetings because there was a credibility issue in terms of whether we could really trust in what the developer was saying. And we said to the village, you shouldn't have to do that. You should have experts on your side. And we brought them in where we needed them, and I think it came out very well. So I have not been I haven't been inside yet, so I'm glad I hope it's nice.
It's very nice. You're welcome to pay your visit anytime.
Yeah, good, okay, all right.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, well, thank you for the presentation.
Right.
And I think you're on the agenda later on, but certainly you don't have to stay. But you certainly.
No, I'm gonna go to a meeting in Mount Kisco, Mayor.
So thanks again. I'm sure we'll be talking.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Take care.
Okay.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Okay, so before I get to any other action items, I'd like to amend the agenda to consider a motion to accept the resignation of Megan Ortiz as Deputy Village Treasurer. So is there a motion to amend the agenda? Trustee Sullivan, second Trustee Nell, all in favor? So that is, the agenda is amended accordingly. Let's get to matters requiring action, and that's to consider a motion to approve the contract with BFJ Planning. We've heard the presentation from Mr. Fish. We have the letter dated September 2nd, 2020 from BFJ Planning to Ed Manley. We also have their resumes and their work experience. Is there anything?
Mr. Mayor, I apologize, but are we skipping courtesy of the floor, or we're gonna do it after this motion? There may be people who are waiting for that.
Yeah, let's just finish this motion, then we'll go to courtesy of the floor.
Okay.
Ed, is there anything you want to add to this, Ed?
No, I think Mr. Fish said it all. I think they're going to be a wonderful attribute to the village, and they have the expertise to help us through any project.
Okay. So it should be noted that most of the time the fees will be paid by the applicant. Is that correct, Ed?
That is correct. We have escrow accounts set up by applicants, and they will pay BFJ. And unless we decide to hire them for something else that we just have some concern over that has nothing to do with a building permit application or a subdivision, then, we would pay them ourselves. But during those subdivision reviews, they would be paid by the applicant.
Okay. So is there a motion to approve this contract? Trustee Casal, second trustee Taylor. Any discussion? All in favor? Okay, that passes unanimously. Okay, let's go back to the courtesy of the floor. I'm sorry, I took it out of order. Is there anybody who would like to speak? And if so, please limit yourself to 3 minutes. Jennifer.
Don't see any. I don't see anyone with their hands raised.
Going once. Going
You knew.
twice. 3 times. Okay. Let's move on. Action item number 2, to consider a motion to refer site plan for 398 Ashford Avenue to the planning board. We did receive the proposed site plan for 398 Ashford. Ed, can you speak to this?
Yes. So Mr. Rothbart owns the building on the entrance to the Parkway South, and he would like to convert the first floor 3 commercial or retail units into residential apartments. He was at our last or 2 meetings ago with his presentation, and the board asked him to see, because he had parking included on property that was over his property line, the board asked him to see if he could find the legal owner through a title search of that property. It's the corner of the entrance ramp off of the Ardsley Dobbs Ashford Avenue Bridge. I don't believe he's found that yet, but I had some conversation with him, and what struck me was, the fact that he was saying people were parking sometimes in front of his building. So that is legal parking, and it sticks right out into the lane, the entrance lane. And I said to him, well, maybe if you were to chop up the sidewalk, because it's a very large sidewalk, and cut it back, put an indentation there, and make those 2 parking spots safer, getting them out of the entrance lane, that might be something that the board would consider. And also maybe making one of those apartments an affordable unit. And the addition of diversity might make a better reason to allow this conversion. So I don't know if Mr. Rothbart is here today, but we're hoping to send this down to the planning board for review if you feel it's ready.
Mr. Rothbart is here and he has his hand raised.
Okay.
Hold on. David, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Mr. Mayor, Board of Trustees, thanks again for the time. Ed, thanks for the ideas around parking. On the title search front, I have gone on a bit of a bureaucratic goose chase. I met with the folks and at White Plains, the records department, property records. I also met with the folks in Greenberg. They all seem to point back to the village, saying that based on tax maps, but there's no definitive answer. I also spoke to 2 different title search companies that said because the property had gone, out of the village's hands and possibly back to the village's hands based on the highway and overpass being built, it would be a lot of paperwork going back 60 years to get definitive answers. I would like to possibly propose some sort of a right of use, right of way, or an easement to still move forward with using that property or pending further investigation, just so that we don't abandon the possibility of making use of that 10 or 15 feet of land. That's question number 1 for the board.
Without, and Laura Lee, maybe you could speak to this. But
Without
without,
a definitive answer on title, nothing that we could transact or draft to transact would really be effective for your purposes. So without a definitive answer on the underlying title question, you can reserve your right should your search yield a definitive answer, but certainly this board wouldn't really be in a position of authority to authorize that in advance.
Is it possible that there is no title for that piece of property and it's part of the owner of the roadway based on the tax map? Is that a possibility?
It's always a possibility, but someone has to own it. It can't be in limbo. But as you explained, because of the overpass and the acquisition by the state in order to make the overpass, and then whether a definitive transfer back to the village with the excess property was made or wasn't made. I know it's a difficult search to make, but I do know that a reputable title company would undertake that search. It's a difficult search based upon a grantor grantee index, and you're looking up things like the state of New York. But I certainly couldn't advise the board to move forward with a definitive answer until the title question set. I'm sorry.
Understood. Okay. So based on based on that and Ed's suggestion of the 2 parking spaces, Ed, what's the objective of going to the planning board? What are the open items as opposed to being able to be granted permission for the conversion?
Well, you are required to go to the board, refers us down to the planning board for engineering review. So look at the change in the sidewalk and curbing, how that would be formed, drained, how everything is pitched, your parking, how you're draining that. So consulting engineer looks at that you have to go to the planning board anyway. So whether this board sends you down there now or wants to wait until you have a definitive answer on the ownership of that property, which I don't see that holding the referral up. You should probably go down there and then continue to look for that, find a good title search company and start your engineering review with the planning board.
Fair enough. Okay.
Laura Lee, are you okay with that?
Sounds good to me. I think getting the planning board started simultaneously on a parallel track with Mr. Rothbard's efforts to answer the title question is really helpful to both the village and to the applicant at this point.
Okay. So is there a motion to refer the site plan for 398 Ashford Avenue to the planning board? Trustee Sullivan, second. Trustee Taylor, all in favor? That passes unanimously. So good luck, Mr. Rothbard.
I need it. Thanks for your time as well.
Okay, action item number 3, to consider a motion to approve budgeted step increase for Gina Bruno, recreation assistant, from grade 5, step 1 to grade 5, step 2, with an annual salary of $49,726.76, as recommended by Ms. Kendra Garrison, Superintendent of Recreation. We have a memo from Kendra to myself and the Board of Trustees, as well as to Ed and Jeff regarding this increase. Jeff and Ed, this is just part of the normal step process because of their time that they've been with us, correct?
That is correct. Contractual.
Okay, so is there a motion? Trustee Sullivan, second. Trustee Cassell, all in favor? That passes unanimously. Action item number 4 is to consider a motion to approve budgeted step increase for Kyle Crawford, Recreation Assistant, from grade 5, step 1 to grade 5, step 2, with an annual salary of $49,726.76, as recommended by Ms. Kendra Garrison, Superintendent of Recreation. Again, we have the same memo. I'm supporting this. It's the same rationale. So is there a motion? Trustee Sullivan, second. Trustee DeRozzi, all in favor? And that passes unanimously. Action item number 5 is to consider a motion to authorize a salary step increase for Ms. Jennifer Vieira, Senior Office Assistant, to grade 12, step 4, in the amount of $77,886.79, effective October 2nd, 2020, as recommended by Mr. Stephen Trezza, DPW General Foreman. In support of that, I have a memo dated September 14th, 2020, from Mr. Trezza to the Board of Trustees, advising regarding the increase. Steve, do you have anything you want to add? Should Jennifer close her ears, or?
She's recommending it.
I couldn't find the button. No, just doing a very good job. Well deserved. Thank you, Jennifer.
Again, Jeff, that's part of the civil service, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, that's correct. It's budgeted step increase.
Okay. So is there a motion? Trustee Taylor, second. Trustee Nell, all in favor? That passes unanimously.
Thank you, guys.
You're welcome. You're doing a great job, as is Gina and
Well,
Kyle.
Kyle. I was gonna get stuck with that. Action item number 6, to consider a motion to appoint Mr. James Trail as a starting laborer at the annual salary of $47,340, effective September 23rd. It's recommended by Stephen Trezza. In support of that, we have a memo from Jennifer, dated September 14th. I think we spoke about this at the last trustee meeting. We approved it. So is there any other comments from either Ed, Steve, or Jennifer, or Jeff?
well, I actually saw Mr. Trail performing out on Gould Avenue today. The DPW highway crew was taking down a tree, which I was very proud to watch. So we are expanding our services and saving taxpayer money by not having to go out for third-party contractors. So that tree removal, it was a dead tree, a village tree, probably would have cost $4,000, $5,000 for a private company to take down. And because of Jennifer and Steve sending some of our men out to classes and learning these new skills, we're saving taxpayer dollars. And Mr. Trail was out there performing very well as also today.
Glad to hear. So is there a motion? Trustee Nell, second. Trustee Patino, all in favor? That passes unanimously. Action item number 7, to consider a motion to appoint Mr. Chris Bucci as a starting laborer at an annual salary of $47,340, effective September 23rd, as recommended by the DPW general foreman. So this is part of the same memo that we received and also part of the same discussion that we've had previously. I know we spoke about it, and Jeff, you feel that the budget can handle this. Ed, is there anything else you want to add?
I thank the board at the last meeting for approving the 2 new laborers for the highway department, and thank you again because it was well needed. And I think we're only going to save money by adding these men.
Okay, is there a motion? Trustee Taylor, second. Trustee Patino, all in favor? And that passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Action item number 8 is to consider a motion to award the bid for the 2020 joint road paving to the lowest bidder, Waters Construction Company, for a total amount of $1,762,202. The amount that Dobbs Ferry will be responsible for is an amount not to exceed $100,000 to pave Tiernan's Lane, Kitching Place, Transvaal Street, and Irving Place. I know we have documentation for this from James Hahn Engineering. We also have received a copy of the bids from the other contractors, and Waters is clearly the lowest. And can you speak a little bit, not only about this, but maybe about how we go about deciding which streets ought to be paved? And Ed, you could start with this, and maybe Jennifer or Steve can go into it a little further.
All right, so we always sign out to shared service, so we get the work done cheaper as a group with the other villages, which is a big benefit to the taxpayer. As far as the list of who gets done, it's a ever-changing list that is looked at constantly by foreman of Public Works as he drives around. It changes after a hard winter when potholes turn into larger street damage and streets start to decay. So that list is maintained by the highway department and is constantly looked at and updated.
Okay.
Maybe you guys want to jump in here?
I also want to add that we get reimbursed from the state for this amount of money. So we put it up front and then we get it reimbursed later in the year or beginning of next year.
Oh, okay. So it's not really costing us anything.
Right.
Okay. All right. Is there a motion? Trustee Patino, second. Trustee Nell. Any discussion? All in favor? That passes unanimously. Action item number 9 is to consider a motion to approve the audit of claims as submitted and recommended by the village treasurer. And we received audits number 3 for September and audit number 4. Jeff, you want to speak about this?
Just the normal audit, claims audit process. No comments unless there's some questions.
Any questions? Okay, is there a motion? Trustee Taylor, second. Trustee Sullivan, all in favor? That passes unanimously. Action item number 10 is to consider a motion to approve fiscal year end budget transfers for the budget year ending May 31, 2020, as recommended by the village treasurer. Again, Jeff, you want to speak to that?
Sure. This is an annual process. We go through, you have to approve any transfers that I make to cover overspent budget line items. And that's what this request is there to do.
Any questions for Jeff? Okay, is there a motion? Trustee Sullivan, second. Trustee Taylor, all in favor? That passes unanimously.
One thing, if I could, it's not a question about this, but Jeff, I wonder if it would be possible at one of the upcoming meetings for you to give a very quick summary of just where the village stands in terms of the budget, given, the uncertain times we're in, where taxes are and the like. I think that might be of interest to the community.
Sure,
Wouldn't have to be elaborate, but just a quick update.
sure, absolutely.
That's a good idea, Larry. We should do that. You're right. We could put it on maybe the next agenda. Action item number 11 is to consider a resolution to approve a settlement of pending litigation. Laura Lee, I'm going to turn to you for this.
Yes, sure. This is a assigned counsel recommendation based upon a claims made a number of years ago in an analysis, purely business, business accounting analysis. The proposed settlement offer of $4,850 is reasonable in light of the cost of continuing litigation costs, including the pending motion to dismiss. And if that fails, a trial would be prolonged. They're not holding trials of this nature yet, so it would probably stream on for another 2 to 3 years to get this cleared. For $4,850, this matter can be cleared off of the pending litigation matters. Again, this is a recommendation from assigned counsel pursuant to your insurance coverage. So the total amount, and since this is public funds, it would need to be approved by this board, would be $4,850. And the resolution before you authorizes that expenditure and also authorizes that special counsel to file whatever documentation necessary to suspend the matter, which is on an active court calendar, which is really more inactive than active at the moment. So based upon his recommendation, which has been circulated under a privileged and confidential communication, you have before you a very simple resolution.
Okay, so I have the resolution as, be it resolved that upon the advice of counsel, the Board of Trustees hereby approves the settlement of litigation having index number 18CV10321PMHLMS in the amount of $4,850 and authorizes counsel to file any necessary paperwork to formally conclude the matter. And then this would resolve all claims against the village or any of its employees, correct?
That is correct. And without any admission of liability or issues, it's, again, I can't stress enough that it's simply a matter of an accounting without further expenditure of public money to move this forward to a not guilty or a culmination at trial. This is a settlement of a very small amount, and it was recommended to be approved at this dollar amount.
Okay, is there a motion? Trustee Sullivan, second. Trustee DeRozzi, all in favor? Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Yeah, that passes unanimously.
Thank you. And Mayor, you've added item 12.
I think I added 13. I have 12. 12 I have is to consider a motion. This is action item number 12, is to consider a motion authorizing the village administrator to sign a intermunicipal agreement with the County of Westchester to provide funding for the youth officer program for 2019 in the amount of $2,285. And we have a copy of that agreement with the county. Ed, can you speak to this?
Due to the process with the county, the village needs to enter into an IMA to be reimbursed for the youth officer's salary. So that's basically why we're approving this. We're getting money back to pay for, some services.
Okay, is there a motion? Trustee DeRozzi, second. Trustee Patino, all in favor? That passes unanimously. Okay, action item number 13 is to consider a motion to accept the resignation of Ms. Megan Ortiz as Deputy Village Treasurer effective September 21st, 2020. Is there a motion? Trustee Sullivan, second. Trustee DeRozzi, all in favor? And that passes unanimously. Okay, that's all the action items. We have the minutes of the meeting of September 8th, 2020. Are there any comments? Okay, is there a motion to accept the minutes? Trustee Patino, second. Trustee Taylor, all in favor? And that passes unanimously. They're adopted. The next item is to do trustee liaison reports. The trustee responsible for the ZBA, does you have any comments?
No updates there.
Okay.
It was a short meeting and I was on it, if anyone wants to know about my deer fence.
What about the AHRB?
AHRB, there's not really anything. There's one house that's a historical house on Broadway that was approved, right, Ed? 480. They're doing like extensive renovations and it's really nice. It's like on the main drag, so I'll highlight that for you guys. But otherwise, it's pretty run of the mill.
Parks and Recreation, Trustee Sullivan.
I think the pool officially closed now, and they're doing a dog swim, I believe, tomorrow. Which, if you drive by, I'm sure you're going to see a lot of dogs in the pool. So it should be a fun sight and entertaining, if nothing else. I think people really enjoy getting their dogs out for a swim. And then, now since COVID sort of calmed down and we're starting to think about what next spring and summer is going to look like, we would like to have a work session with the Board of Trustees and the Rec Department and the Chief of Police talking about Waterfront Park and the permits down there and rules and parties and all that good stuff. So we should try to get that on the agenda.
Yes, we should. It's a good idea. The Conservation Advisory Board.
Yeah, we've got a few things actually. Sue Galloway, who is the committee chair, was going to come tonight, but she was unable to make it. So I'll give the list of things that she wanted to mention. We're participating again in River Keepers Sweep, which is cleaning up Waterfront Park, and that will take place on October 17th. We don't have times yet, but it'll be late in the afternoon because we have to wait for low tide. We will be sending out notices through the village when we have more information on that, but that happens every year. It's very successful and families come out. We will be social distancing. There will be masks, gloves, it will be socially distanced, and it is outside in Riverfront Park, and it's actually usually a kind of fun and very interesting event when that takes place. So that's on October 17th. The CAB was part of a grant application for trees for tribs. They will be planting on October 18th. We're gonna have a very busy weekend. They will be planting like almost 68 shrubs and native trees in Chauncey Park, which is the new park being established down by Rivertown Square. There's a trail there and they'll be doing some plantings there, and they're looking for volunteers. If anybody is interested in volunteering for that to help plant and cut down some invasive vines and stuff. She didn't give me an email for her, but you can use my email on the village website, which is trusteecassell@dobbsferry.com. And also the High Street Parcel. There's a High Street Parcel group which meets every other weekend to clean and plant through the Adopt a Park program. High Street Parcel down, which is Station Plaza. So I was looking for volunteers for that. And then I'd like to bring up, it's not on the agenda, but the senior citizens group, they are now started exercise classes outdoors, socially distanced. So if anybody is interested, please contact the rec department at 693-0024. And that's it.
You and I and Nicole and Ed walked behind that Chauncey Park, and that was the first time I've been there, and it's an amazing piece of property. So it should look great coming up in the near future. And I'll put that in my calendar. Maybe I could help plant a tree or two.
Really great. Yeah.
And I'd like to add, Mr. Mayor, that the application to for the village to acquire the northern portion of that park from the state has finally been filed with the state, which the members of the village have been talking about for, I think, 20 years now. So it's been done, and it should all be ours and designated as perpetual parkland.
That's great. And I don't want to put you on the spot, Ed, but can you just talk a little bit about the, I guess I'm going to put you on the spot. Can you tell us a little bit about the embassy?
Oh, yeah, sure. The embassy is going very well. We're on I think, a schedule to have a soft opening in end of October, hopefully. And so the roof is completed. We're waiting for the warranty to be inspected. For that, the brickwork is almost at completion. The front doors are being replaced with the proper doors. The interior work is, I believe, down to little things like hanging men's and women's signs on the bathroom doors. We're ordering handrails for the entrance ramp that's going to be installed to match the Cedar Street ones. And the roof over the parking space is being completed. So we're pretty much almost there. It's looking very good.
Yay.
Good to hear. Just in time as it gets colder out, maybe we can use it.
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. Sustainability Task Force? You're on mute.
Sorry about that. The STF met last week for the first time this fall. There's quite an agenda of things to accomplish to try and raise our energy status from bronze to silver. Some of them also are contributing items to a series of potential grants. You may remember that we did receive some grants based on progress that we've made. In conjunction with the mayor, we're going to have the STF make a short presentation about their objectives and priorities at one of the upcoming board meetings. So that'll be sometime in the next couple of meetings.
Any announcements by anyone? Yes, Maura.
I just want to share with the community that with all of the recent events that promote so much hate in our community, I would like to remind parents about bullying. Next month is going to be Bullying Awareness Month. And it is important for us as parents to not overlook. It is a very real and active situation in our village. My daughter was recently actually a victim of bullying. And as maybe for some parents, something might not be as big until it doesn't happen to you. You don't know the severity and the damage that some of those actions can cause. As we move forward in our village, I really want to encourage parents to don't overlook cyberbullying, don't overlook physical bullying, because it's very real, it's alive in our community. And it is our responsibility as parents not to undermine some of the things that occurred, but actually to take action and educate our children about the challenges that children that they are subject to this type of situations can face. So it's the beginning of the year. Kids are in a very difficult situation right now. They're all trying to do their very best. And the last thing that a child needs is to be facing bullying currently during these difficult times. Thank you.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. So thank you, Maura. I want to thank the trustees for the liaison reports. And I just want to say, believe it or not, we only have about, I think, 4 more meetings. Well, December, the new term starts. So we have to talk about your role as liaisons and how to reassign and even it out. So please, now I will reach out to you individually, but if you're no longer interested in certain committees, or you really have your heart set on some other committees, or you want to keep certain committees, please reach out to me. So in the next month, I do want to reassign committees and make it more equitable. So We are getting towards the end of the year, believe it or not. So,
It's crazy.
We should
Uh,
also, sorry.
yes, Laura Lee?
Mayor, I just want to say that prior to your next meeting on the 13th, there's a chance that the executive order waiving the open meetings law requirements would be lifted. So I just want to prepare the public that they should continue to monitor the situation. If there's a need to do a hybrid arrangement or an in-person meeting with restrictions, that would be certainly listed. Liz Draper's on top of it. So as soon as we know from the executive order from the governor's office, we'll get that information out to the public.
When does this one expire?
It expires the first week in October, and your meeting is not until the second week in October. So we just want to be prepared and let the public know that Liz will certainly be getting all the information out to them if there's a change in the arrangements. Right now, we're believing that the governor will continue to permit this format in some fashion, whether it's a hybrid or whether it's truly this format with virtual attendance. But in the event that that is not possible, then we'll have, with staff's assistance, we'll have arrangements made for in-person. Thank you. Sorry to bother you.
I just wanted to thank Liz for all her efforts on the census because we exceeded our numbers from 10 years ago. And I don't think it's done yet. So the more people that participate, the more money that comes to our community. So I think that was really great. And I wanted to remind the public that we have early voting in Dobbs Ferry. So not to wait till the last minute or try to mail in, just go to Village Hall and vote.
Correct. So I do want to, you're right, Liz, thank you for your hard work on the census. It must have been all those 60 signs that you placed around. Did it? And I think the early voting starts October 24th. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so the early voting starts October 24th. And you're right, can be done at Village Hall. So anything else? We are going to have a joint meeting, right, Jennifer? What was the date for that?
October 7th at 7 p.m.
So everyone should be aware of that. We're not going to meet as a board before then, but October 7th is the joint meeting with the other boards regarding the historical review.
Historical
Guidelines.
District Guidelines
Thank you.
joint meeting.
We'll be assisting, we'll be getting recommendations and comments from the other boards in terms of moving forward with those guidelines. So it is a special meeting. Liz, again, is on top of it with the special meeting notices, but again, that's after the proposed lifting, if it's possible, of the virtual mandate. So we'll have a notice that will include both ways of attending. So everyone will be ready.
Okay. Having heard no other business, is there a motion to close this meeting? Trustee Sullivan, second trustee DeRozzi, all in favor? Okay, the meeting is hereby adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Right.
you. Good night.
Thank
Good night.
you. Bye, guys.
Good night.